Imagine this. You stand before a mirror, but the reflection isn't yours. It's theirs, the person you love. Their smile curves where yours once dimpled. Their anxieties pulse beneath your skin like borrowed blood. You try to step back, but your feet have grown roots into their shadow. When did you become an echo? A vessel? When did love become a quiet erasure? Society calls this soulmate, two halves becoming whole. But what if the metaphor is a lie? What if love, as we've been taught, demands the amputation of your edges to fit another's void? You whisper, "I'd die for you," never noticing how parts of you already have. The hobbies abandoned, the truths unspoken, the self dissolved like sugar in their tea. Is this intimacy or slow suicide? We mistake possession for passion, clutching tighter as identity slips. But love is not a sanctuary, it's a crossroads. Nietzsche warned, "When you gaze long into the abyss gazes also into you." Yet we never ask, what abyss dwells in the eyes of the beloved? What parts of us do they hollow out while we're busy romanticizing the void? Here's the unbearable truth. To love without losing yourself, you must first become a stranger. To them, to you, to every fairy tale that promised love would complete you. Completion is a tomb. Growth is chaos. Can you love in the key of and wild and devoted, separate and entwined? Or will you keep painting your reflection in the color of their gaze? This is the question that will haunt or liberate you. What if love isn't about finding home in another, but becoming a pilgrim? Two souls trekking parallel paths, close enough to touch, yet free enough to wander. The answer waits in the shadows, where your unloved self lingers. She's brittle, furious, alive. Will you meet her there? Before it's too late? Why do we vanish in love? Why do we trade our names for we, our dreams for ours? The answer lies in the stories we've been fed. Stories so ancient they feel like truth. Carl Jung called it the anima and animus, the idea that we are incomplete until we find our other half. But what if this myth is a prison? What if wholeness was never meant to be found in another, but within? Society thrives on your incompleteness. It sells you rings, vows, and fairy tales, whispering that love is the answer to your emptiness. But emptiness is not a void to be filled. It's a signal, a call to grow, to become. Yet we silence it with romance, mistaking dependency for devotion. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this clearly. We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. And nowhere is this forfeiture more celebrated than in love. Here's the deeper wound. We lose ourselves because we never truly knew ourselves to begin with. Jean-Paul Sartre called it bad faith, the act of lying to ourselves to avoid the terror of freedom. Love becomes the perfect alibi. I'm not lost, we say. I'm loved. But what if love, as we practice it, is just another mask? Another way to hide from the unbearable responsibility of being? Jung believed integration was the path to wholeness, not the merging of two souls, but the reconciliation of our own contradictions. Nietzsche urged us to become who we are, to embrace the chaos of self-creation, and Sartre warned that love, when used as an escape, becomes a kind of hell. Yet we cling to the myth of completion, terrified of what we might find if we stopped searching for ourselves in another's eyes. The hidden problem is not love itself, but the way we've been taught to love. We've turned it into a transaction. My freedom for your affection, my identity for your approval. But what if love could be different? What if it could be a mirror, not to lose yourself in, but to see yourself more clearly? The roots of this madness run deep, but the way out begins with a single, terrifying question. Who are you when no one is watching? Imagine a world where love is the currency, but the price is always you. The threads that bind us, those invisible cords of expectation, sacrifice, and fear, are not just personal. They are societal, cultural. They weave through every relationship, every family, every institution, until the very fabric of our lives is stitched with the unspoken rule: to be loved, you must disappear. These threads are not just metaphors. They are cognitive biases, hardwired into our brains. The halo effect makes us idealize our partners, blinding us to their flaws and our own needs. The sunk cost fallacy chains us to toxic relationships, whispering, "You've invested too much to leave." And the fear of abandonment keeps us small, quiet, compliant. Love becomes a cage, and we hand over the key without a second thought. The consequences ripple outward. Children learn to shrink themselves to earn parental love, carrying those wounds into adulthood. Partners silence their truths to keep the peace, breeding resentment like a slow poison. Families become echo chambers, repeating the same patterns for generations. And society? It thrives on our compliance. A population that loves itself less is easier to control, to exploit, to sell to. We perform love like a script, reciting lines we didn't write. "I'm fine," we say when we're breaking. "You're my everything," we vow when we've forgotten what everything even means. The tragedy is not that we lose ourselves, it's that we don't notice. We mistake the performance for reality, the role for the self. And the longer we play the part, the harder it becomes to remember who we were before the curtain rose. The unseen consequence of losing yourself in love is not just personal, it's existential. Viktor Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." But what happens when we change ourselves into someone we don't recognize? When we become strangers to our own desires, our own truths, our own souls? The cost is not just a relationship, it's a life. Rebellion begins at the edge of fear, the edge of comfort, the edge of everything you've been told love should be. It's the moment you realize you can stay and drown, or you can leap and fly. But to fly, you must first let go of the weight you've been carrying. The weight of expectations, of roles, of the belief that love requires your disappearance. Letting go is not destruction, it's transformation. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. It's the shedding of masks, the reclaiming of lost parts, the integration of contradictions. It's saying, I am not just your lover, I am also my own. This is the first act of rebellion, to choose yourself, even when the world insists you shouldn't. The second act of rebellion is to redefine love, not as a merger, but as a dance. Two souls, whole and separate, moving in harmony, but never losing their rhythm. This requires boundaries, not walls, but gates. Gates that say, you may enter, but only if you respect what grows here. It requires the courage to say no, to disappoint, to risk losing what you've clung to so tightly. Because only then can you discover what it means to be truly loved, not for what you give up, but for who you are. The third act of rebellion is to grow, not for someone else, but for yourself. Nietzsche said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." Growth is chaos. It's messy, painful, and unpredictable, but it's also the only way to become the person you were meant to be. To love without losing yourself, you must first become someone worth keeping. This is the rebellion. To love fiercely, but never at the cost of yourself. To build a love that doesn't demand your silence, your sacrifice, your vanishing. A love that says, "I see you, all of you, and I choose to stand beside you, not above or below or within." It's a revolution, not just of the heart, but of the soul. Imagine standing before a door you've spent your entire life searching for. It's the door to the ultimate truth about love, the one that will rewrite everything you thought you knew. But here's the paradox. The door has no lock, no handle, no way to force it open. It only opens when you stop trying to enter, when you realize the truth was never behind the door, but within you. The ultimate truth is this: love is not something you find. It's something you become. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of their personality. But to grasp another, you must first grasp yourself. To love another, you must first love the chaos, the contradictions, the infinite complexity of who you are." Love is not a destination. It's a state of being. This is the final revelation. Love is a mirror, not to lose yourself in, but to see yourself more clearly. When you love from a place of wholeness, you no longer seek completion in another. Instead, you offer them the gift of your presence, not your absence, your truth, not your silence, your freedom, not your chains. And in doing so, you create a love that is not a prison, but a sanctuary. This is the love that doesn't demand your disappearance. It's the love that says, "I am here, you are here, and that is enough." It's the love that grows from the soil of self-awareness, watered by the rain of courage, and lit by the sun of truth. It's the love that doesn't complete you, because you were never incomplete to begin with. This is the ultimate truth. Love is not about losing yourself. It's about finding yourself and allowing another to do the same. It's about standing tall in your own light while holding space for theirs. It's about creating a world where love is not a transaction, but a transformation, where two souls can meet, not as halves, but as wholes, and where the greatest act of love is not sacrifice, but freedom.